It's time to talk about June's Journey, a hidden object mystery game with a captivating detective story. When you're playing, you solve a mind-teasing mystery of the roaring 1920s while you dive into June's captivating quest to uncover a scandalous family secret and solve her sister's murder. It's mystery, it's danger, and it's romance, and you never know where the next chapter's gonna take you. If that wasn't fun enough, you get to customize your very own luxurious island estate. Seriously, I cannot stop playing. I am already on the 3rd chapter, and I just started recently. Join me back in time in the glamorous 1920s. June needs your help, detective. Download June's Journey for free today on iOS and Android.
You wanted to see me, Miss Swinton?
Have you been hearing about the new government modernization efforts?
AI, RPAs, data science.
Things are changing at this agency, and people will need new skills. I'd like you to get some training. Look at this management concepts catalog.
Wow, over 275 courses.
That's right, in local classrooms or instructor-led online classes. We still have budget in this fiscal year, so sign up online.
Advance your career with courses from Management Concepts. Get a catalog at managementconcepts.com or call 833-578-8466.
This podcast may discuss topics graphic in nature and possibly triggering to survivors. We value the safety and well-being of all of our listeners, so please practice personal discretion. Now, enjoy the show. Hey, I'm Paige.
And I'm Natalie.
We're the hosts of the Murder Diaries podcast.
We bonded over tacos and true crime after we matched on Bumble BFF.
You know, like any normal millennial using an app to meet new friends.
Every Thursday, we upload a new episode.
In each episode of the Murder Diaries, we tell true crime one story at a time. One week it's my turn.
And the next week it's mine.
You still think it's in my head, but I'm walking with the dead.
On October 17th, 2009, a 20-year-old college student from Roanoke, Virginia, went missing from a Metallica concert. She seemingly vanished without a trace. Strangers would report sightings of her from later that night, but her friends and family would never see her again. This is the story of Morgan Dana Harrington. Morgan was born July 24th, 1989 in Charlottesville, Virginia. She was born to Dan and Gilbert, also known as Jill Harrington. She had an older brother, Alex, who was about 2 years older. Her father, Dan, was a doctor, and her mom, Jill, was a nurse. They met when Jill was working as an ICU nurse, and Dan was working as a resident in psychiatry and internal medicine at the University of Virginia Hospital. The couple would stay affiliated with University of Virginia until 1990 when the family moved to Roanoke for an opportunity for Dr. Harrington. He had an opportunity to open up a new psychiatric residency program at Virginia Tech's Carilion Clinic. It's also reported that he had an additional opportunity to help develop a new therapy center at the Roanoke Memorial Hospital. Each resource that I found that mentioned these two different opportunities that were presented to Dr. Harrington mentioned them separately in separate articles. So it's unclear how the two may or may not have been connected, but it is clear that there may have been two different opportunities that brought the family to Roanoke. Morgan was very close with her family. After she had left for college, she called about every day, and according to her father, she would visit home from college about once or twice a week just to be there. She would hang out with her dad, stay for dinner, all while appreciating things like her laundry magically getting done by Jill while visiting.
Paige and I cover a lot of cases, and we hear about a lot of families being close-knit. But the Harrington family really, truly seems to be just that. They enjoyed each other's company and always loved having Morgan home with them.
They really did enjoy spending time together. Her mama called in an interview really enjoying this new adult daughter and parent relationship that Morgan and her parents were now fostering. Morgan is described by her mom as, quote, kind of like champagne, bubbly and cause for celebration. Her dad remembers her as sweet and as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. Morgan's presence and appearance was as bright and bubbly and beautiful as her parents expressed in their interviews. She had bright blue eyes, long blonde hair, and she stood at about 5 feet 6 inches tall, and she weighed in at somewhere around 120 pounds. Despite her more classic look, Morgan was very artsy, and she was described as loving everything that was art and music. Moreover, on her childhood bedroom walls, there were posters for an eclectic array of bands, including Pantera, Black Sabbath, Bob Marley, Beatles, Led Zeppelin. The list goes on. Morgan was also extremely smart. She attended Northside High School in Roanoke before graduating from Lord Boudetort High School in 2007. She was admitted early decision to Virginia Tech, which is about 40 or so minutes away from her childhood home. She began attending Virginia Tech in fall semester of 2007. Much of the source material talks about Morgan working towards becoming an elementary school teacher. It should be noted, though, that one source mentioned that her bachelor's was going to be in education, and one source mentioned interdisciplinary studies. And when I took the time to look on the website at the list of undergraduate degrees, the only degree listed, or major, I should say, listed, that seemed to make sense was elementary education. The list did not contain a just education major or a major in interdisciplinary studies. So using deductive reasoning, it seems that elementary education would have been the major that these sources are talking about. If we've learned anything about Morgan thus far, it's that she had a zest for life and had such eclectic taste. She was definitely not all work, no play. That being said, Morgan found out that Metallica was going to have a show at the University of Virginia's John Paul Jones Arena, which is located on the University of Virginia's campus. She was so excited. As soon as tickets went on sale, Morgan and her dad worked together to get tickets for her and her friends. Morgan's dad gifted, at a minimum, Morgan's own ticket to her. The date for the show was set for October 17th, 2009. Morgan's mom, Jill, recalls that the Metallica tickets were on the fridge with a magnet holding them on in place for months. So it really kind of was a family countdown to this show. Finally, the day was here. October 17th, 2009. Morgan decked herself out in all black. It was an outfit that she and her mom actually had picked out together. It was a black miniskirt, black tights, black boots, and the kicker, a black vintage band tee that repped another metal band, Pantera.
Because everyone knows you don't go to the concert wearing that band's shirt.
Definitely not, especially in the metal and the punk world. You gotta find another band tee. For accessories, Morgan is said to have added a few pieces of family heirloom jewelry. Of course, Morgan wanted to feel like she was looking good, but more importantly, Morgan's mom says that Morgan wanted to make sure that she could dance the night away at the concert. As I mentioned earlier, Morgan was attending Virginia Tech. She was a junior at this time because it's fall 2009. She graduated high school in 2007. When she began college at Virginia Tech, she did move out of her parents' house. So Morgan was actually technically visiting on this day. She was visiting with her parents, getting ready, grabbing the tickets, and then heading to the show. The plan was for Morgan to actually return the following day, Sunday the 18th, so that she could work on math coursework with her dad. I believe she was prepping for a test, actually. And she was also going to kind of be working on finances with him. Her dad kind of uses the terminology balance her checkbook, just so that Morgan could learn a couple of life lessons surrounding her finances. But of course, before that return on that Sunday, it was time for the concert. She set out at about noon to pick up her roommate, Amy, who had also been a friend of hers since middle school. It's unclear from resource material if Morgan was picking her up from the Virginia Tech area or from their hometown. After Morgan picked up Amy, they then went ahead to pick up their two other friends, Sarah and her boyfriend. They were picking them up at James Madison University before heading to the concert, which was still a couple hours away in Charlottesville. Her mom recalls that Morgan and her friends planned to stay the night in Harrisonburg. Harrisonburg, Virginia is about an hour away from the arena where the concert was. And it just so happens that it's also an hour closer to Morgan's hometown. Thus, the next day, when they were ready to drive back, they were going to be able to be an hour closer. A couple hours after she had left, around 2:30 p.m., Morgan called and checked in with her dad. She let him know that she and Amy had made it to James Madison University, where they were picking up Sarah and her boyfriend. It was now onward to the John Paul Jones Arena at University of Virginia. They were about an hour away. After Morgan and Amy picked up Sarah and her boyfriend, there's not too much information as to what the group was up to until the concert started. Regardless, the group made their way to the arena and the concert started at 7 p.m. At about 8:15, Morgan tells her friends that she's going to head to the restroom. After she was gone for 30 minutes, Sarah calls her. This is at about 8:48 p.m. Morgan answers and she tells her that she's stuck outside the arena. Somehow, as she headed to the restroom, Morgan ended up outside of the arena. And unfortunately, the arena had a strict no reentry policy. When you think about it, and definitely in retrospect to this case, this policy is so dangerous. This arena is on a college campus. Thus, it's going to have a lot of young people in attendance at its shows that could also end up stuck outside and alone like Morgan did.
This policy is a real double-edged sword. It's there for a reason, and we don't need to go into those, but it can be very dangerous, especially if you're a young girl who gets stranded outside, separated from the group of friends you're there with, by yourself.
These are things that absolutely need to be looked at when making policies like this. Regardless, on this night, Morgan was stuck outside despite her best efforts to get back in. She tells Sarah, "Look, you have my car keys, keep them, I'll find a ride." The next day, Sunday, October 18th, Morgan's mom was at church while her dad was at home awaiting her return. Remember, they were going to be working on Morgan's finances and studying math. He was expecting her around noon, but at 11 a.m., he received a phone call from the University of Virginia police. They tell him that someone has turned in Morgan's purse. He thought it was strange, but he wondered if maybe she had just accidentally dropped it while getting in the car or something like that, because they had found it in the parking lot. He even later said to Jill when she had returned home, "Gosh, you won't believe it. University of Virginia police called and someone turned in Morgan's purse." Jill, however, had an instant gut feeling that this was off and something very bad had happened. She wanted to know if the police had her purse, where was Morgan?
That's that mother's intuition and also just a woman's intuition. She knows a young girl's not going to go anywhere without her purse.
And worries only got worse when noon came and went and Morgan didn't show back home. Dan and Jill got on the phone with Morgan's friends that she went to the concert with that night. Her friends told them that they hadn't seen Morgan since she left to go to the restroom that night. And they informed them that she had gotten stuck outside of the arena. With this new information, her parents called the University of Virginia police. The police take their concerns very seriously and they conduct a search around the arena. When they reach the overflow parking lot for the arena at Lanigan Field, they find Morgan's cell phone. It's a BlackBerry and its battery is missing. By that night, Morgan's parents are fearing the worst. They haven't heard from Morgan at all, and university police are in possession of her purse and her batteryless phone. On Monday, October 19th, Jill and Dr. Harrington head to Charlottesville to speak with the Virginia State Police, who are officially taking over Morgan's missing persons case. Emphasis on missing persons case, because that's what it was at the time. According to Special Agent Capuzzo, there wasn't a large indication to state police at first that it was anything but a missing persons case, as in not missing and endangered. According to some of Morgan's friends, it wasn't necessarily all that strange for Morgan to kind of go off during nights out or whatever and show back up later the next day. With that in mind, investigators start their investigation by retracing Morgan's steps from that night. They interview Sarah, Amy, and Sarah's boyfriend. The group indicates to police that it didn't seem that Morgan had intentions to not return. This is important because, remember, they had also heard from friends that she was independent like that at times, where she would go off on her own and meet up with another group other than the ones that she had arrived somewhere with. This explanation of Morgan most likely having intentions to return is backed up by the fact that Morgan didn't even have her car keys with her when she left. Sarah had them. Also, they hadn't set up any kind of special meeting point or anything like that to find each other after the concert. Nonetheless, what she had told them was that she was going to the restroom, which usually means you'll be back in a few minutes. Moreover, we have the 8:48 p.m. phone call with Sarah, where Morgan was stuck outside, but otherwise would have been back with them. All signs pointed to that she was planning to come back. After quite the search, they decided they had to end the evening without her and head to their rest point in Harrisonburg. The police then turn to the media. They hold a press conference where they ask for public assistance and hope to inform those that didn't already know if they did see anything. The search continued, but no further physical evidence was found besides the phone and the purse. On October 20th, 2009, her parents pleaded at a press conference for Morgan to come home. They needed and wanted to be as public and accessible as possible. In just 2 short days, $100,000 was collected as reward money for Morgan's safe return. Metallica frontman James Hetfield called the Harringtons and even put up an additional $50,000 in reward money. What's more is that Metallica put out a message to their fans on their website. It's here that they ask if anyone has footage from the concert that night that might help the investigation. The tips finally start coming in. They're coming in online and to the police's tip line. Now that those tips are finally coming in, police are able to get a better idea of Morgan's movements outside the arena. It should be noted that no one to this day knows how Morgan ended up outside the arena during her trip to the restroom. It should also be noted that there are 18 marked restrooms for women inside the arena. At any rate, on the CCTV footage at 8:50 p.m., Morgan could be spotted outside the ticket window at the front of the arena. Police identified and contacted the witnesses that they see near Morgan on the surveillance tape. These witnesses indicate to police that Morgan's behavior at that time did seem like she may have been under the influence. Of what? We don't know. Her friend indicated that she had been drinking, but that she wasn't drunk. There were some reports of a wound on her chin, and investigators know that she did possibly drop her purse and spill its contents. A few of those witnesses outside near the ticket window had offered to help her, but she basically told them no thank you. Investigators ended up being able to get hundreds of accounts from witnesses, and they all assisted in gathering information on Morgan's movements. What they gather is that after she was spotted at 8:50 on the surveillance tape in front of the ticket window, at 9 p.m., 10 minutes later, she was seen in the University Hall parking lot, which is adjacent to the John Paul Jones Arena. At 9:10 p.m., she can be spotted near Davenport Field, RV Park, and University of Virginia track. At 9:20 p.m., Morgan was spotted by witnesses on Copley Road Bridge near the intersection with Ivy Road. The witnesses indicate that Morgan was hitchhiking. She was trying to catch a ride. Not that far off from what she had told her friends she was going to do. According to Morgan's parents, Morgan had never hitchhiked to their memory, and she had just never done anything like that before. And to police and her parents, this indicated that she may have been desperate and maybe not thinking clearly. Police continue their search around the area. Part of this search involved the entire tunnel system that is underneath University of Virginia. They also ran dogs over the area. They went further and did covert searches of potential sites where a body may be. At this point, police have, of course, shifted from just thinking that she was missing to that they might be looking for a body. A helpful piece to this case, if you can even say that, is that a local weekly Charlottesville-based paper called The Hook had launched its own investigation the day after Morgan had gone missing. Courtney Stewart is a reporter for The Hook, and she poured through the witness accounts and made sure to catch wind of all the town gossip about the case. She was doing this in an effort to see if she could garner any new information. With that, she took the time to attend an orientation session for volunteers for the search of Morgan. While she's at this orientation, there's a woman that stands up in the back. This woman says, "Why hasn't anybody called me back? I've been trying to give you my tip. I saw her." This woman, Norma, just so happened to have been delivering newspapers around the University of Virginia campus when at 3:45 a.m., she sees Morgan coming out of a room near the west lawn. This is roughly 6 hours after Morgan had been seen hitchhiking on Copley Street Bridge. I'm going to enter a correction because I think I accidentally called it Copley Road Bridge earlier in the episode, but it is Copley Street Bridge. So just quick correction, interjection there. Anyways, back to Norma. So it's 3:45 a.m. and Norma sees Morgan coming out of a room near the west lawn of the University of Virginia campus. And she's with a few other people, and this group just walked slowly by Norma. Interestingly, Norma notes very confidently and very seriously that yes, this was Morgan, and no, she was not wearing tights when she saw her. We have an article where Norma states this as well in the show notes, but also Norma made it a big point in the documentary to state that the woman she saw was Morgan and that she wasn't wearing tights. Norma is so confident in this that she tells the Hook, "I know what I saw." Norma goes on to say that Morgan was accompanied by 3 white young men, 2 shorter, 1 taller. As the group passed by her on the well-lit brick walkway along the lawn, Norma got a solid look at Morgan, and she took notes of her heavy eye makeup. The Hook also writes that, quote, "the woman's," presumably Morgan's, "presence in the wee hours of a chilly night and her bare legs seized her, Norma's, attention," end quote.
And now a word from today's sponsor.
Is your daily grind getting you down? A ThermoSpa's hot tub may be the solution. Just a few minutes under those powerful soothing jets, and all your stress seems to melt away, like you're lying on a cloud of bubbles. You'll not only feel better, but sleep better too. Call 877-861-4672 now, and for a limited time, save $1,250. Call 877-861-4672 or visit thermospas.com to schedule a free on-site assessment.
Norma recalls looking at Morgan straight on in the face. She was really concerned that a young girl like Morgan was alone and that these 3 guys were with her at such an odd hour. I really think that Norma had women's intuition here, regardless if it was Morgan or not. The next day, Norma awoke to seeing Morgan's face everywhere as a missing person. She knew it was the girl she had seen on the west lawn. She called the tip line, but feels that the police didn't take her seriously. It should be noted that investigators counter that they did look into the lawn sighting and they even ran bloodhounds over that area. Unfortunately, they just couldn't confirm that Morgan had been there. At least at the time of the documentary I watched, they couldn't confirm it. Despite this discrepancy, reporter Courtney checks in on the sighting anyways. She goes to the room where Norma said she had seen Morgan at, near the west lawn. The student that was living there basically said no, Morgan wasn't here, and informed her that there had been a wedding reception being held next door, and maybe it was one of the guests from the wedding leaving. Norma, however, stands by her story. And honestly, Norma's story isn't far off from another eyewitness's story. A woman arriving late to the Metallica show says that she saw 4 young men with a blonde woman wearing what Morgan had been described as wearing as she arrived to the arena. She says that the group passed by her car walking away from the arena, which struck her because she thought it was odd that they were walking away from the arena given that the show was going on. This witness, too, took note that the girl was a bit unstable or wobbly while walking. Special Agent Capuzzo reminds us in his interview that eyewitness accounts, true or not, must be corroborated in order to fully assist the case. And we in the true crime community know that sometimes this is easier said than done. All the leads and tips that are coming in, unfortunately, are falling through in one way or another. But then on November 11th, 2009, another clue arises. A Pantera t-shirt, just like the one that Morgan had been wearing when she went missing, was found just 2 miles away from the arena. It was found on the ground by a University of Virginia student next to an apartment complex. This complex was near the intersection of 15th Street and Grady Avenue in Charlottesville. This area is heavily populated with college students, so they have to be sure that it's Morgan's shirt. But if it is, then that would be the first piece of physical evidence that they've found since they found Morgan's purse and her phone. Police hold that they had searched this exact area where the shirt was found earlier, and the shirt was not there. And of course, they were hoping that this shirt, if it was indeed Morgan's, would give them some kind of clue as to what happened to her. Luckily, they were able to recover hair from the shirt. And with that, they were hoping to uncover some type of DNA. Another month passes. The search was stopped on December 16th, 2009. It had been 8 weeks. Morgan's mom recalls feeling demoralized and frustrated that, quote, people quit on Morgan, end quote. Despite the search being stopped, her parents continue to engage the media and plead with whoever may have taken Morgan to, quote, please just let her go, end quote. The good news is that this engagement kept Morgan's story alive, and it added pressure to the police to not let it go completely, to not give up on the case. Then on January 26th, 2010, everything takes a turn. A farmer in Albemarle County, just 10 miles away from the John Paul Jones Arena, was driving his tractor around his property's fence line to check for damage after a big snowstorm had come in. It's then, in a remote corner of his 700-plus acre property, that he came across human remains. Of course, he called 911 right away, and investigators responded immediately, and the forensic team got to work. Morgan's parents were given a call by members of the media to let them know a body had been found and that, of course, it might be Morgan. The remains still had clothing and jewelry on it, so it wouldn't have taken much to believe that it was Morgan. The body was unfortunately decomposed at this point, but it was, of course, sent for DNA testing and dental record comparison. The dental records confirmed the farmer had found Morgan's body. Dr. Harrington recalls finding out about the news that it was Morgan's body. He says, quote, it's the worst thing that you don't want to hear, but yet at the same time, it's what I expected. And there was some relief in that. It wasn't missing anymore. The missing is the worst thing. Morgan's missing persons case was now a homicide case. Thanks to mitochondrial DNA testing and the cooperation of Morgan's mom, in April 2010, they were able to confirm that the Pantera shirt that was found in November 2009 was indeed Morgan's t-shirt. It blows my mind how long these things can take. That's almost 6 months. Unfortunately, they hadn't found any other evidence near where that shirt had been found. In May 2011, Virginia Tech awarded Morgan her bachelor's degree posthumously at what would have been her college graduation ceremony. Of course, there were still no answers as to what happened to Morgan. Then, 2 months later, in July 2011, the case takes another turn. DNA from a 2005 abduction and assault case of a 25-year-old Fairfax woman is linked directly to matches of DNA from Morgan's case. On September 24th, 2005, the woman had been walking home from the grocery store at 10 p.m. when she was grabbed from behind and dragged to a community pool area where she was then assaulted. The victim fought back, and the assailant ended up getting frightened when someone passed by and he took off like the coward he is. What's important here, though, is that they got his DNA, and this helped them link to Morgan's case. The surviving victim was also able to create a sketch and description of the attacker. It should be noted that at the time the DNA link happened, police did not release the circumstances of how DNA was collected for Morgan's case. This is because, of course, the case was ongoing and the assailant was still nameless. Years went by before another link was made, but in 2014, DNA from Morgan's case was linked to another murder. And now for a word from one of this week's sponsors. 18-year-old Hannah Graham went missing in September of 2014. Her friends had last heard from her via text message at about 1:20 a.m. on September 13th, 2014. She had told them that she was on her way to a party, but that she was lost. Surveillance footage and witness testimony showed that Hannah was at Tempo Restaurant with then 32-year-old Jesse Leroy, aka LJ, Matthew Jr. There's, of course, so much more to this case that we can't focus on during this episode, but here's what's important when it comes to Morgan's case. Police had already identified and arrested Jesse in September of 2014 on other accounts and in recognition that he was a person of interest in Hannah's case. Thus, they were able to get DNA from Jesse. His DNA matched DNA that they had found from Hannah's case on her shorts. These shorts had been found in Jesse's apartment, and they knew that they had belonged to Hannah. He was then formally charged with Hannah's abduction. And on September 29th, 2014, it was announced by police that they had a DNA match from Jesse in Morgan's case as well. And this DNA was found on Morgan's t-shirt. They were also able to match dog hair on Morgan's shirt to Jesse's dog, Popcorn. Hannah's body was later found on October 18th, 2014. It was also found in Albemarle County. I may have mispronounced this earlier, so another correction here in this episode. It is Albemarle. At any rate, Hannah's body was also found in Albemarle County at a remote property, which was about 5 miles from where Morgan's body was found. On September 15th, 2015, LJ was charged with first-degree murder and abduction with intent to defile and the death of Morgan Harrington by Albemarle County grand jury. The maximum penalty for each offense is life in prison. On March 2nd, 2016, LJ pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and abduction with intent to defile in both Morgan Harrington and Hannah Graham's cases. For this, he received 4 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. A judge then sentenced LJ to 3 life sentences on top of that for the 2005 sexual assault of the Fairfax, Virginia woman that had been attacked by him. According to Disappeared blog, under the plea agreement he had made, he gave up his right to appeal, and he would not be eligible for geriatric release or anything like that either. And as of now, he's currently serving at Sussex State Prison. Due to Morgan's case not going to trial, all we know is that Morgan died in the manner of homicide at the hands of LJ. Her body indicated that she had rib and arm fractures, as well as a fractured skull. In May 2019, it became known that LJ had stage 4 colon cancer, and in December of 2020, he was transferred to a secure unit at VCU Hospital in Richmond. In July of 2021, he was named in another sexual assault lawsuit. This guy was prolific, and that's where the trail ends for now. Today, Morgan's name lives on through her parents' philanthropy. They built an educational wing at the Omni School in Zambia and named it after her. What's sweet about this is that children now will be taught in her honor, just as she had dreamed of being a teacher. There's also a scholarship in her name at Virginia Tech's Carilion School of Medicine. Morgan's life was memorialized February 5th, 2010 at St. Andrew's Church in Roanoke. There was a blinding snowstorm that day, but over 500 people attended to remember and honor Morgan. Morgan was then cremated, and part of her ashes were spread in Zambia. Jill has written a book. It's called Morgan Harrington, Murdered and Dead for Good. Morgan's parents and some loved ones are involved with HelpSaveTheNextGirl.com. One of those loved ones is a family friend and professor, and they wrote a beautiful letter that's posted on the website. The letter is, of course, much longer than the excerpt I'm about to read, so I definitely encourage go to HelpSaveTheNextGirl.com and check the letter out. The letter states, "Dear little Morgan, you blue-eyed cherub girl, collector of music and toy turtles, lover of animals, child watching the wild, perfect Virginia Creek water burble over your gifted hands. You were breathtaking joy. I have another quote here from Jill, Morgan's mom, and it's very insightful in that it really gives us a clue into just what these families with missing and murdered loved ones go through and feel. She says, quote, "Here's where faith comes to the rescue. The belief that the direction of the universe is toward good and wholeness, despite all appearance and destruction. The pieces are falling into place, not apart. You cannot impose your desire on those pieces. They don't fit where you may want. Instead, they will slip into the best, most appropriate place of their own accord." I just feel like that quote is a little bit poetic and, again, insightful into what's getting Jill through a life where she had to say goodbye way too early to her daughter. That's where we'll leave this week's episode. Until our next episode, you know where to find us at the Murder Diaries Pod on TikTok and Instagram, at the Murder Diaries podcast.com, and at the Murder Diaries Pod at gmail.com.
And if you haven't already, go ahead and rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It helps us keep the good content flowing.
Your 5 stars mean everything. And until then,
Stay safe.
bye.
Seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device, or play on PC through Facebook Games.